Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow morning, brush your teeth, check your phone, pour your coffee, and rush to work. Nothing unusual. But here's the truth most people never realize. It's not the big goals or the dramatic choices that shape your life. It's the small, repeated actions, the ones you barely notice, the ones so ordinary they feel invisible. James Clear calls these atomic habits. Atomic because they are incredibly small. Habits because they are the routines that shape your days. Combine the two, and you get behaviors that look insignificant in the moment, but when repeated over time, they become the most powerful force in shaping your future. This is the promise of atomic habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Goals set the direction, but habits decide whether you actually arrive. And the best part? Building habits that transform your life doesn't require superhuman discipline. It only requires small changes made consistently that compound like interest. In this complete guide, you and I will journey through every idea in the book. By the end, you won't need another summary. This will be your one-stop, detailed audiobook-style companion designed to help you understand, remember, and apply everything you hear.
When James Clear was a teenager, he wasn't thinking about habits, success, or psychology. He was focused on baseball. His dream was to become a professional athlete. But one ordinary day, during practice, that dream shattered. A stray bat swung out of control and smashed straight into his face. He collapsed instantly. His skull was fractured, his nose broken, and his brain was swelling dangerously. Doctors placed him in a medically induced coma. For months, he couldn't walk on his own, couldn't think clearly, couldn't even perform simple daily tasks. And yet, this tragedy became the seed of his philosophy.
Recovery wasn't quick. There were no miracle breakthroughs. It was slow, tedious, full of pain, doubt, and small victories. James started by cleaning his room every day. Then he committed to his physical therapy routine. Then he tracked small goals one at a time. These actions looked insignificant, but together they rebuilt his life. His grades improved. He made it back to the baseball field, not as a superstar, but as someone reliable, disciplined, and consistent. Eventually, he became an academic All-American and later a leading voice on human behavior. That's the essence of atomic habits. Small actions done consistently compound into something extraordinary. Most of us wait for a dramatic moment, a big opportunity, a life-changing event, before we decide to improve. But James's story proves something powerful. Transformation starts long before success is visible. It starts with the smallest behaviors, repeated quietly in the background, long before the world applauds you. The lesson is simple. You don't need to change your entire life today. You only need to start doing one small thing, every single day, that aligns with the person you want to become. Picture a plane leaving Los Angeles for New York. If the pilot shifts the nose just 3 degrees south, barely the width of a fingertip, the passengers won't even notice. But hours later, that tiny angle lands the plane in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles away from its target. That is the mathematics of life. Small changes, when compounded over time, lead to dramatically different destinations. Most people underestimate this truth because the effects are invisible at first. You eat a salad today instead of a burger. Nothing changes. You read 10 pages of a book. No one applauds. You save a few dollars. Your life looks the same. But repeat these small actions for months and years, and you wake up in an entirely different reality. The power of small improvements lies in their compound effect. If you improve just 1% each day for a year, you become 37 times better by the end. If you decline by 1% each day, you almost hit zero. Success and failure are not single moments. They are trajectories that compound quietly while no one is watching. Every tiny action is like a snowflake falling on a mountain. One makes no difference, but over time, snow gathers, layers form, pressure builds, and eventually an avalanche of change rushes down. The danger is that our brains crave quick feedback. We expect effort and reward to arrive together. But in real life, there is a valley of latency, a silent period where results haven't caught up to your effort yet. You go to the gym for a week and still look the same. You practice a skill for a month and still feel clumsy. So most people quit, believing nothing is working when in truth, their effort is compounding beneath the surface, waiting to cross a critical threshold. The task is to stay patient inside that valley, to keep watering the seed even when you can't yet see the plant, to trust that invisible progress is still progress.
Clear calls this phenomenon the plateau of latent potential. You're working hard, yet the results seem flat, until one day they explode upward, and everyone calls it overnight success. But it wasn't overnight. It was the day the compounding effect finally became visible. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. At 25 degrees Fahrenheit, nothing happens. 26, 27, 28 degrees, still nothing. Then at 32 degrees, it melts. That 1 degree shift is visible, but the change was prepared by every degree that came before it.
That's why the direction of your habits matters more than the speed. You can sprint in the wrong direction and get nowhere, but slow, steady movement in the right direction eventually conquers distance. So the real question isn't, how fast can I change? It's, am I moving in the right direction at all? Because time will magnify whatever you feed it. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make time your enemy. This leads to one of the book's most counterintuitive lessons. Goals are about the results you want. Systems are about the processes that lead there. Winners and losers often share the same goals, but what separates them is the system they built. In the next section, we'll explore why focusing on systems instead of goals changes everything, and how to design the small daily structures that make success inevitable. Most of us are taught to set goals. Lose 20 pounds, earn a certain income, write a book, launch a business. And when we don't reach them, we blame our motivation, our discipline, or the lack of willpower. But the truth is simpler. Goals are not broken. The system behind them is. A goal is the destination. A system is the path. A goal can give you direction, but it cannot move your feet. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not necessarily more talented. They simply designed better systems. When you chase only goals, 3 problems appear. First, winners and losers often have the same goals. Every athlete wants to win gold. Every entrepreneur wants success. Every student wants good grades. The goal itself can't differentiate you. It's the process that does. Second, goals are temporary. When you achieve one, motivation fades. You run the marathon and stop running. You hit the sales target and relax. Systems, on the other hand, keep you improving because they are built into your identity, not your checklist. Third, goals assume you can control the outcome. But life rarely follows perfect plans. You can't always control the results, but you can always control your actions today. Systems focus on what you can do now. A writer whose goal is to publish a book may freeze under pressure, but a writer who follows a system, write one page every day, produces quietly, consistently, until one day the manuscript is done. A person whose goal is to get fit may obsess over numbers on a scale, but a person with a system, exercise every morning, and eat mindfully becomes healthy as a side effect. A business owner chasing revenue may burn out. One who refines the system, improving the product, serving customers better, learning faster, grows inevitably. Goals are result-based. Systems are identity-based. When your attention shifts from winning to improving, you win more often and with less stress.
Clear writes, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." That single line is worth remembering forever. Success is never a one-time act. It's the product of a lifestyle, a collection of small routines repeated until excellence becomes ordinary. So instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" ask, "What kind of person would achieve that? What would that person do each day?" Then build a system that lets you become that person automatically.
When you focus on systems, something beautiful happens. You stop obsessing over external achievements and start transforming your internal identity. You don't just lose weight, you become a healthy person. You don't just write a book, you become a writer. You don't just start meditating, you become calm, centered, and self-aware. And once your identity shifts, maintaining those systems feels natural. Discipline stops feeling like a battle. It feels like alignment. In the next section, we'll go deeper into this transformation, how your habits shape your identity, and how your identity, in turn, shapes every habit you build. Real transformation begins when change reaches the level of identity. You can't outperform the story you believe about yourself. If deep down you think, "I'm lazy," every system you build will quietly sabotage itself. But if you begin to believe, "I'm disciplined," your mind starts searching for proof of that belief in everything you do. Each small habit becomes evidence of who you are becoming. You don't try to be disciplined, you simply do what a disciplined person would do. This is how true consistency is born, not from forcing behavior, but from aligning behavior with identity. Think of personal growth as having two concentric circles. The outer circle is outcome change, what you get. The inner circle is identity change, who you are. Most people start from the outside in. They say, "I want to lose weight," instead of, "I'm becoming someone who honors their body." They say, "I want to stop procrastinating," instead of, "I'm the kind of person who values momentum." James Clear flips the direction. Start from the inside out. Ask, "Who do I want to become?" Once that's clear, your habits become natural expressions of that identity. Every action is a vote for the type of person you wish to be. No single vote decides the election, but together they do. Write one page, vote for being a writer. Go for a walk, vote for being active. Compliment a stranger, vote for being kind. Even missing a habit doesn't destroy your identity, it simply delays the count. What matters is that the majority of your actions point toward the person you intend to become. Change is not about perfection, it's about accumulation. When identity leads, motivation follows. You no longer wake up debating what to do. You simply act in alignment with who you are. Identity becomes a compass, and habits are the steps that follow its direction. This approach also protects you from relapse. If you define yourself only by outcomes, a non-smoker, a gym goer, a straight-A student, one failure threatens the entire identity. But when your identity is built on the process, someone who cares about health, someone who learns daily, failure is just feedback. You get back on track because that's who you are. Behavior changes identity, and identity strengthens behavior. It's a feedback loop. When you act differently, your brain collects new evidence, which reinforces new beliefs, which drive new actions. Over time, this cycle becomes self-sustaining. This is why small habits are so powerful. They offer frequent, undeniable proof of progress. You don't need to chant affirmations. Your daily actions are your affirmations. You become trustworthy by keeping tiny promises to yourself again and again. Now that we understand that habits grow from identity, we can learn the practical steps for designing them. James Clear distills the science of behavior into 4 simple laws, principles that explain why you do what you do and how to re-engineer those actions. In the next section, we'll begin with the first law. Make it obvious. How to design your environment so that good habits become visible and natural and bad ones fade from view. Every habit begins with a cue, a small signal that triggers the next action. You see a cookie jar on the counter, you reach for one. You hear a notification, you check your phone. You smell coffee, you start craving caffeine. Habits are the brain's way of conserving energy. Once it links a cue to a reward, the process runs on autopilot. That's why so many of our routines happen without thinking. If you want to change your behavior, the first step is to become aware of these invisible cues. What triggers your actions? What environment is quietly programming you every day? Awareness precedes control. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. Clear suggests a tool called the Habit Scorecard. Write down every reoccurring behavior in your day and mark it as positive, negative, or neutral. Wake up, scroll phone, negative. Drink water, positive. Brush teeth, positive. Skip breakfast, negative. The point isn't to judge yourself, but to reveal patterns hiding in plain sight. Once a habit becomes visible, you can redesign it. Most people try to rely on willpower, but environment often beats willpower. If the chips are on the table, you'll probably eat them. If the running shoes are by the door, you'll probably go for a jog. Your environment should whisper the right cues. Want to read more? Keep a book on your pillow. Want to practice guitar? Place it in the middle of the room. Want to eat better? Keep fruit on the counter and hide junk food in a hard-to-reach cabinet. Make the cues of good habits visible and the cues of bad ones invisible. You don't need to fight temptation if you never encounter it. Habits are context-dependent. The same action in a different setting feels like a new behavior. If you always eat while watching TV, your brain pairs the couch with snacking. If you study at your desk, your mind starts associating that space with focus. Use this to your advantage by creating habit zones, dedicated spaces for specific behaviors. A chair only for reading, a table only for work, a corner only for meditation. When your environment signals clarity, your brain follows effortlessly. Good intentions fade without a plan. That's why Clear recommends using implementation intentions. A simple statement: I will behavior at time and place. For example, I will meditate for 5 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room. I will write 1 page at 9 p.m. at my desk. It's concrete, measurable, and trains your brain to expect the cue. Over time, the place and time become automatic triggers. Another powerful method is habit stacking, linking a new behavior to an existing one. Instead of relying on memory, you attach the habit to something you already do. After I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth. After I pour my coffee, I will write my daily goals. After I take off my shoes, I will stretch for 1 minute. The formula is simple. After I blank, I will blank. This harnesses your brain's existing neural pathways rather than building new ones from scratch. Humans are visual creatures. We tend to do what we can see. That's why a to-do list works better when it's visible, and why hiding your phone in another room helps you focus. If you want to drink more water, keep a filled glass at arm's length. If you want to take vitamins, put the bottle beside your toothbrush. Your environment should make the right action the obvious one. Instead of trying to resist bad habits, remove their triggers. Don't keep snacks in the house if you're trying to eat clean. Unsubscribe from marketing emails if you overspend. Move social apps off your home screen if you want to use your phone less. Success doesn't come from heroic discipline, it comes from smart design. When you master visibility, good habits no longer need willpower. They happen because the environment nudges you toward them. But there's another layer to human behavior. Even when we see the cue, we act only if we want to. That brings us to the second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. The art of turning good habits into things you genuinely crave. Every habit is a loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. And between cue and response lives the most powerful force in human behavior: craving. We don't act because we have to. We act because something inside us wants to feel a certain way. We don't crave the cigarette, we crave the relief. We don't crave the drink, we crave connection or escape. We don't crave checking our phones, we crave stimulation, novelty, or validation. Understanding this layer, the emotional one, gives you control over your behavior. You can't eliminate cravings, but you can redirect them. You can teach your brain to desire what truly serves you. At the center of this process lies a chemical called dopamine, the brain's messenger of motivation. Most people think dopamine is released when we get a reward, but neuroscience shows something subtler. Dopamine spikes in anticipation of the reward, not after it. It's not the cookie that excites your brain, it's the smell before the first bite. It's not the success itself, it's imagining the moment before it happens. We are wired to chase feelings of expectation. If you can associate positive anticipation with a good habit, your brain starts to crave it naturally, no discipline required. Clear calls this technique temptation bundling, pairing something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, listen to your favorite podcast only while exercising. Drink your favorite smoothie only after journaling. Watch your favorite show only while folding laundry. This creates a psychological bridge. Your brain links the pleasure of one activity with the effort of the other, making the habit more attractive and enjoyable. We don't live in isolation. Our habits are also shaped by what we see others doing. We're wired to imitate 3 social groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. We copy the habits of the people around us, the majority we belong to, and those we admire. That's why fitness feels natural in a gym full of active people, and learning feels exciting in a group of curious minds. Behavior is contagious. Environment is social gravity. If you want to make a habit more attractive, surround yourself with people who already live that way. Join a culture where your desired behavior is normal. You'll stop fighting for motivation because belonging will start doing the work for you. Humans would rather be wrong with a crowd than right alone. This truth, though uncomfortable, can become your advantage. If you want to change your life, find the group where your new identity earns respect. In a tribe that values reading, books become status symbols. In a tribe that values entrepreneurship, effort becomes exciting. In a tribe that values discipline, consistency becomes cool. Your brain naturally wants to earn approval, so use that social drive consciously. Let it pull you toward good habits instead of away from them. Another method to make habits attractive is to ritualize them. Turn them into something sacred instead of mechanical. Instead of, I have to meditate, say, I get to reconnect with my breath. Instead of, I must exercise, say, this is my time to awaken my body. Add a small ritual that signals a start, a deep breath, lighting a candle, playing music. Ritual transforms repetition into meaning. And when something feels meaningful, you don't need willpower. You feel drawn to it. Finally, learn to reframe the craving itself. When your brain says, I have to, change the language to, I get to. I have to wake up early becomes, I get to start my day in peace. I have to eat healthy becomes, I get to fuel my body. Words rewire emotions, and emotions drive behavior. By making good habits attractive, you're no longer pushing against resistance, you're being pulled by desire. You've transformed your cravings from enemies into allies. Now the next step is to remove friction, because even when you want to do something, if it feels hard, you'll avoid it. That brings us to Law 3, make it easy, the art of simplifying your habits so that doing them feels effortless. There's a trap many people fall into, planning instead of doing. We research, organize, make to-do lists, watch tutorials, all motion, no movement. James Clear calls this the difference between motion and action. Motion feels productive but doesn't produce results. Action, however small, changes reality. Reading about exercise isn't a workout. Buying a journal isn't journaling. Watching a cooking video isn't cooking. If you want to master a habit, stop waiting to feel ready. Start moving. Because the more you act, the easier acting becomes. Good habits fail not because we're lazy, but because they're buried under friction. Every extra step between you and your habit adds resistance. Your job is to remove those steps. Want to exercise? Lay out your clothes the night before. Want to eat healthy? Wash and cut fruit in advance. Want to read more? Keep the book open on your pillow. Reduce the number of decisions between you and action until the habit becomes almost effortless. Environment is a silent scriptwriter. Edit it wisely. Clear's golden rule. When you start a new habit, make it take less than 2 minutes. Put on running shoes. Read 1 page. Write 1 sentence. Meditate for 1 breath. The point isn't intensity, it's entry. A habit must be easy to start before it can become powerful. Starting tells your brain, I am this kind of person. Once you've crossed the starting line, momentum will carry you forward. Everyone wants the perfect system, the best workout plan, the perfect diet, the most productive morning routine. But perfectionism kills progress. Clear says, you can't improve a habit that doesn't exist. First, standardize. Make it consistent. Then, optimize. Make it better. You don't need the best gym plan. You need the habit of showing up. You don't need the best writing method. You need to write regularly. Consistency beats intensity because intensity is unsustainable. Consistency compounds. The easiest way to make a habit stick is to remove the need for willpower entirely. Use technology and systems to automate good decisions. Set automatic transfers to savings. Schedule recurring grocery deliveries. Use alarms, reminders, or habit tracking apps. Automation turns discipline into design. When good actions happen by default, your future self is already succeeding while you sleep. Before every habit, ask yourself, what can I prepare now to make this effortless later? If you want to cook more, chop vegetables ahead of time. If you want to study, keep your notes on the desk. If you want to create art, leave your tools visible and ready. Preparation is the silent twin of consistency. By priming your space, you're telling your future self, I made this easy for you. Newton's first law applies to behavior too. Objects in motion stay in motion. Once you start, even small actions gather momentum. That's why the hardest part of any habit is the first step. So design your life around lowering the activation energy. Make starting so small that you can't say no. Repetition is the mother of mastery. You don't need 10,000 hours, you need the right actions repeated enough times for them to become automatic. Habits form not by time passed, but by frequency practiced. The more often you do something, the faster your brain wires it in. It's not about one massive leap. It's about hundreds of small, faithful steps. When you make good habits easy, they become default behaviors rather than struggles. But ease alone isn't enough. We still need satisfaction to sustain them. Without a sense of reward, the brain loses interest. In the next part, we'll explore Law 4, make it satisfying, how to reinforce habits so they feel rewarding and self-motivating. Every action you take delivers a consequence, immediate or delayed. Your brain, however, is wired for instant gratification. It loves the reward that comes now, not the one that comes later. That's why scrolling social media feels easier than reading a book. The dopamine hit is immediate, but meaningful habits, the ones that shape your future, often have delayed rewards. You go to the gym today, but your body doesn't transform today. You meditate, but peace doesn't arrive instantly. You save money, but the account barely grows. So if you want good habits to stick, you have to bring satisfaction into the present moment to make the brain feel rewarded now for the work that will pay off later. Think about training a dog. When it obeys a command and you give it a treat immediately, the brain learns, that was good, do it again. But if you wait even a minute, the connection weakens. Humans work the same way. The shorter the time between the action and the reward, the stronger the habit becomes. So when you build a new habit, find a way to feel rewarded instantly, even in small ways. Smile. Mark an X on your habit tracker. Celebrate mentally. I kept my promise. That little burst of satisfaction sends a message to your subconscious. This behavior feels good. Let's repeat it. Habit tracking is one of the simplest, most effective forms of instant reward. You don't have to spend money, download fancy apps, or chase streaks. You just record progress visibly. A mark on a calendar, a note in your phone, a physical tracker on your desk. It transforms invisible progress into visible proof. You can see the chain of consistency forming, day after day, action after action, and your brain craves keeping the streak alive. Clear calls this don't break the chain. You're not chasing perfection, you're chasing momentum. If you miss a day, it's fine. Just never miss twice. Missing once is a mistake. Missing twice is the start of a new habit, the habit of quitting. When forming a new habit, attach a small, healthy, immediate reward to it. After finishing a workout, take a relaxing shower. After studying, listen to your favorite music. After writing, drink your favorite coffee. This creates a psychological connection. Effort equals reward. Over time, the behavior itself becomes satisfying. The act of showing up feels good. And when something feels good, you don't need motivation to keep doing it. Bad habits persist because their rewards come now and their punishments come later. You smoke now and feel relaxed. punishment comes years later. You overspend now and enjoy the rush. Punishment comes when the credit card bill arrives. To break a bad habit, invert the timing of pain and pleasure. Make the cost immediate. If you waste time, set a rule to donate $10 to charity you don't like. If you skip your habit, tell a friend to hold you accountable. When the pain of inaction becomes present, the brain begins to resist it naturally. Accountability is social satisfaction. It ties your behavior to reputation. When you tell someone your goal, your brain associates it with identity. I'm the kind of person who follows through. It's not about fear, it's about integrity. When someone else is watching, your consistency multiplies. So find an accountability partner, a group, or even a public tracker. Anything that makes your effort visible beyond yourself. Visibility turns private effort into public promise, and humans love keeping promises. As you repeat your habits, you'll notice something magical. What once felt like discipline begins to feel like art. You stop forcing yourself to act. You start taking pride in doing it well. That's the joy of mastery, the moment when a habit evolves from repetition into expression. You're no longer practicing, you're performing. You're no longer learning, you're living it. And that's when the habit becomes unshakable, because it's no longer external work, it's internal joy. By now, every law of behavior change has built toward one truth. Habits create identity, and identity sustains habits. When you make a habit satisfying, you're teaching your brain that this is who I am. Every small win becomes evidence. Every repetition becomes proof. You don't try to be the person anymore. You are the person. You no longer say, I'm trying to exercise. You say, I'm an athlete. You no longer say, I'm learning to focus. You say, I'm disciplined. Satisfaction completes the cycle. Cue, craving, response, reward, and turns behavior into identity. You've now learned the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. Make it satisfying. Each one is simple alone, but together they form a system that rewires your life permanently. In the next section, we'll go beyond the basics, exploring advanced habit tactics, how to break plateaus, rewire complex routines, and master the art of consistency forever. Most people stop improving the moment progress slows. They start strong, then plateau, thinking they've hit their limit. But in reality, they've simply entered the next stage of growth, the place where the amateurs quit and the professionals begin. True mastery doesn't come from doing more. It comes from understanding how to keep growing when growth becomes invisible. This is what separates temporary motivation from lifelong transformation. When your habits are already running smoothly, you don't need a new routine. You need refinement. Tiny tweaks, strategic adjustments, awareness of patterns. The same way an athlete fine-tunes their technique or a musician polishes a single note for years, long-term success is about sharpening what already works. Think of habits like a flight path. At first, you need energy to take off. Once you're in the air, the real work is maintaining the right altitude, correcting small deviations, staying on course when storms appear. So the question shifts from how do I start to how do I sustain and evolve? That's where the advanced tactics of atomic habits begin. Every performer, creator, or learner eventually hits a plateau. Progress slows, motivation fades, and you start doubting the process. But here's the truth most people never realize. Plateaus aren't proof of failure, they're proof of consistency. They mean your system is working well enough to maintain results. Now it's time to upgrade it. Instead of quitting, ask 2 questions. 1, where is friction still hiding? Maybe the next level of progress is blocked by something tiny, a poor sleep schedule, an untracked distraction, or a vague target. 2, what new feedback can I add? Track a slightly different metric. If you've been measuring hours spent, start measuring quality or intensity. If you've been counting workouts, track recovery and energy levels instead. Progress hides in dimensions you haven't measured yet. Remember, growth is not linear. It's like climbing a staircase in the dark. Flat stretch, and then, suddenly, you rise again. Your job during the flat stretch is to keep walking, trusting that another step upward is coming. In the next section, we'll talk about the Goldilocks rule, the secret formula for staying consistently motivated without burning out, used by world-class performers to maintain flow for years. Every creator, athlete, or entrepreneur starts with excitement. The first few days feel electric. You can see progress, feel the dopamine. But as repetition sets in, excitement fades. You're no longer chasing something new, you're maintaining something familiar. And this is where most people quit. Not because the work got harder, but because it got boring. The truth, even the best performers in the world feel boredom. Champions aren't those who avoid boredom, they're the ones who master consistency when things stop feeling exciting. James Clear calls this sweet spot the Goldilocks rule. It says, humans experience peak motivation when working on a task that is just beyond their current ability. Not too easy to feel dull, not too hard to feel impossible. Imagine playing tennis. If you play against a child, you're bored. If you play against a professional, you're crushed. But if you play someone slightly better than you, you're alert, focused, and alive. That's the Goldilocks zone, the space where challenge and skill meet perfectly. You feel engaged, not overwhelmed. You feel progress, not pressure. This is why successful people structure their growth as a constant slight stretch. They push their boundaries by 4 to 5% at a time. Never so much that they crash, but always enough that they evolve. To use the Goldilocks rule, design your habits with progressive difficulty. Add friction slowly. If you read 1 page a day, go to 2. If you run for 5 minutes, go to 7. If you create 1 video a week, go to 2. The brain craves challenge, but it must believe success is possible. This balance keeps motivation alive without draining your energy. So whenever you feel stuck, ask, is this task too easy or too hard? Then adjust until it's just manageable. That's how you build consistency that lasts years, not weeks. Here's the secret most people miss. Boredom is not your enemy. It's your threshold of greatness. When something feels boring, it means you've mastered the basics. You've built enough skill that the challenge is no longer external, it's internal. Professionals understand this. Writers write on uninspired days. Athletes train even when they don't feel like it. Investors review portfolios when markets are flat. They know the difference between feeling bored and being done. Success requires embracing the dull moments between breakthroughs. So the next time your brain says, "This is boring," reply, "No, this is the part where most people stop, and I don't." True masters turn habits into art. They find joy in refinement. A sculptor spends hours perfecting 1 curve. A speaker rehearses 1 phrase hundreds of times. The work hasn't changed, their perception has. Instead of chasing excitement, they chase precision. Instead of waiting for motivation, they create it through momentum. That's the Goldilocks rule in action. Endlessly refining your edge, 1 micro improvement at a time. Now that you know how to maintain motivation through balance and boredom, it's time to learn how to prevent relapse. How to make sure your habits survive chaos, bad days, and changing environments. Because success doesn't depend on what you do when things go right. It depends on what you do when everything goes wrong. No matter how disciplined you are, there will be days you fall. You'll skip a workout, break a streak, eat the wrong thing, lose focus. And that's okay. The people who succeed long-term aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who recover fast. James Clear calls this the power of the never miss twice rule. Missing once is an event. Missing twice becomes a pattern. Your goal isn't perfection. It's course correction. When you slip, instead of guilt or self-blame, simply whisper to yourself, "Okay, I'm back," and return to the path the next moment you can. Most people see failure as evidence of weakness. High performers see it as feedback. Every failure contains a clue. Why did I miss this habit? What cue failed? What system broke? Failures are mirrors reflecting design flaws. Fix the system, not yourself. The gym didn't happen? Maybe it's too far. The journaling stopped. Maybe it's too late at night. The diet broke. Maybe the food isn't accessible. Don't change the goal, change the setup. Failure is just data whispering, adjust the design. Every day offers a reset button. One good action can restart the momentum. Miss a morning routine? Start at noon. Eat junk for lunch? Make dinner healthy. Skip a workout? Do 10 push-ups before bed. You're never off track. You're just one decision away from being back on it. Momentum doesn't vanish. It waits. It's patient, loyal, ready to return the instant you act again. The biggest trap of self-improvement is perfectionism. We think consistency means never missing, but true consistency means never quitting. If you miss a day, you're still 99% consistent compared to those who never began. One mistake doesn't erase the effort unless you let it. Replace the "I ruined it" with "I learned from it." Replace "I fell off" with "I'm recalibrating." Language reshapes identity, and identity keeps habits alive. Inside every person live two selves, the builder and the breaker. The builder dreams, creates, improves. The breaker doubts, delays, distracts. Every day you vote for one of them. And the secret is, you don't have to destroy the breaker, you just have to starve it. Feed the builder with small wins. Act before excuses speak. Reward progress, not perfection. Over time, your builder becomes stronger until the breaker quietly fades away. Resilience isn't a trait you're born with. It's a habit you build. Every comeback teaches your brain that you can bounce back. Every restart makes the next one easier. Think of it as muscle memory for your mind. The more you recover, the faster you recover. Soon, failure loses its power. It becomes just another data point on the path of consistency. Habits are a long game of identity. There's no finish line, only refinement. One bad day won't define you, but one good comeback can reignite you. Success isn't measured by days you never fell, but by the days you rose again. So whenever you feel like you've fallen too far behind, remember this truth. You are never starting from zero. You're starting from experience. We've covered how to build habits, how to make them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. We've seen how to stay motivated, how to recover after failure, and how identity fuels it all. Now comes the final chapter, the summit of atomic habits. Mastery and legacy, how tiny habits build an extraordinary life. In this section, you'll discover how habits shape not just your success, but your character, your future, and the legacy you leave behind. We love stories of overnight success, the breakout entrepreneur, the viral creator, the athlete who came out of nowhere. But behind every overnight success is a decade of invisible effort, thousands of small, uncelebrated repetitions, years of quiet consistency. The world sees the explosion. It never sees the slow accumulation of sparks that built up to it. James Clear calls this the compounding of mastery. Every habit, no matter how small, is a brick in the cathedral of your future. And greatness is simply the patience to keep laying bricks when no one is watching. Mastery isn't about doing more, It's about doing less better. It's about falling in love with boredom. Because the truth is, consistency is boring. There's no applause when you wake up early again. No one cheers when you say no to distraction. There's no medal for choosing the salad instead of the fries. But behind that quiet discipline hides something extraordinary: momentum. The difference between amateurs and masters isn't talent. It's that masters keep showing up when motivation disappears. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a decision. And decisions, repeated enough, become destiny.
There comes a moment in every pursuit where progress slows. You practice daily, but improvement becomes microscopic. That's the plateau of mastery, the test that filters dabblers from masters. The novice says, "I'm not improving. Maybe I should quit." The master says, "This is the phase where others quit. I'll keep going." Because mastery isn't about sudden leaps. It's about endurance through stillness. Like a sculptor polishing the same curve 1,000 times, you refine not because you must, but because excellence has become your identity. At the beginning of this journey, you might have wanted better habits. Now you realize habits weren't the goal. Identity was. You don't do habits anymore. You are the kind of person who lives this way. You don't need external rewards. Your identity is the reward. You show up because that's who you are. You persist because you no longer know any other way. James Clear puts it beautifully. The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. That's the quiet superpower of atomic habits. They don't just change your results, they redefine who you believe yourself to be. Most people chase goals. Few build systems. Even fewer become the kind of person who doesn't need either, because they've made growth itself their default state. When you master habits, you stop chasing success. You attract it. When improvement becomes part of who you are, the results compound automatically, like interest in a spiritual bank account. Every page you read, every workout you finish, every kind act you offer, adds invisible wealth to your future self. You may not see the dividends today, but one day, when you look back, you'll realize the person you became was worth every small repetition. Here's the most beautiful part. Your habits don't just change you, they change everyone around you. A parent who chooses patience raises calmer children. A teacher who models curiosity sparks generations of learners. A leader who listens builds a culture of trust. Tiny behaviors ripple outward in ways you'll never fully measure. Change yourself, and you unconsciously give others permission to change too. This is how movements begin. Not with noise, but with example. Someday your name will fade from memory, but the systems you build, the kindness you practice, the habits you model will live in others. Legacy isn't built by what you achieve, it's built by what you embody. So ask yourself, what kind of habits would I want my children, friends, or community to inherit from me? Because whether you realize it or not, they already are. Every action you take today plants a seed in someone else's garden. And one day, long after you're gone, those seeds will bloom. When you finish this audiobook, you'll close your eyes and think, how do I begin? You already have. Every time you press play, stayed curious, and imagined the better version of yourself, you were casting votes for that identity. The only thing left to do is to keep voting. So tomorrow morning when your alarm rings, don't think about motivation. Don't think about outcomes. Just take the smallest possible action toward who you want to be. Because if there's one truth James Clear wants you to remember forever, it's this. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And when your systems are built with love, patience, and discipline, you don't just build habits, you build a life.
If this deep dive helped you grow, don't forget to save it. You can return to this anytime you need to restart your habits, refocus, or rebuild momentum. Drop a comment. I'm building my identity one habit at a time. Let's make this our movement. And remember, this isn't the end of atomic habits. It's the beginning of your atomic life.